The following is a sentiment which has been expressed in comments below our videos. Jonathan Pollard, after languishing in prison for 30 years, could have chosen the easier path of silence, but instead chooses to continue fighting for the Jewish nation, and for that we are grateful. At Machon Shilo, we are also thankful that one voice of truth joins together with another voice of truth, that of Rabbi David Bar-Hayim. Welcome, Jonathan.
Thank you.
Rabbi Bar-Hayim.
Shalom and welcome to all our viewers and to my friend Jonathan Pollard. It's good to be with you again.
Thank you.
So tell us, what is foremost on your mind today? Today being Wednesday, the 28th of February, according to the Gregorian calendar. Yod Tet, I believe, of Adar. That is correct. Your Teth of Adar Aleph, according to our calendar. What is foremost in your mind? What current event do you wish to deal with first?
I think the first issue we should address is probably the most dangerous one. And that is the Diktat that was issued today by the United States government, that Israel has until mid-March to sign a document pledging to abide by humanitarian law while using American-supplied equipment. Moreover, they followed this up with a new demand that we also pledge to allow uninterrupted humanitarian relief supplies to enter Gaza. There was a third thing that happened today as well, linked to these two developments. The Secretary of the Treasury, Janet Yellen, made what I could only characterize as a chutzpah statement that we have to turn over all the money to the PA that we collect without reserving any of it or reducing any of it because of their pay for slave policy. You know, let's explain something here. The Americans are trying to set us up for an arms embargo, because what is humanitarian law? It's whatever they want it to be. And right now, given the UN and given the various international courts that are reviewing our conduct, we don't stand a chance, no matter what. So the Americans are going to hold that over our heads, assuming we even sign this document, and say, look, we'll protect you from this, but you have to get out of Gaza, and you have to stop your attack on Hamas. The United States has already, by the way, told the PA that they're in favor of a joint government between the PA and Hamas. So, of course,
as I recall, that worked out very well in 2006.
Yeah, they Fatah
when the Fatah elements were thrown off rooftops.
Right, they had their first paratrooper corps without canopies, without parachutes or canopies. No, but this is all coordinated. It's all linked, and the objective of this diktat concerning the use of American arms will only be applied to us. The Americans are saying, well, it will be applied to everybody who is in receipt of American arms. But I'm sorry, that's not going to happen. It's inconceivable that we would apply this law or this executive order to the Ukrainians. Nor should we, frankly. Nor should the Americans. Nor should they apply it to us either. We are in war. And I'm prone to quoting Roman maxims, but Cicero or Cicero, depending on how you pronounce it, had a great expression, which is in times of war, the law is silent. And how much more so is that appropriate when you're dealing with Nazis and barbarians, such as we are in the form of Hamas? The fact of the matter is, as far as I'm concerned, we should treat this diktat with the contempt that it deserves. So friends of mine today, trying to figure out what we should do, said to me, what are we supposed to do if they threaten an arms embargo because of our refusal to sign, to accede to this diktat? And I said, what we did in 1973, which was to roll out an aircraft loaded with nuclear weapons and waited for the satellite to pass overhead and take a quick snapshot of it. And next thing you know, oh boy, the American supply effort was rolling right along. We have to put the knife up to their throats. The Biden administration has crossed the line, and they are now acting as an enemy of the state of Israel.
Clearly not as an ally.
Clearly not as an ally. As far as the humanitarian aid diktat is concerned, picture after picture after picture of Hamasnikim hijacking these trucks at gunpoint, killing people at who are trying to get food, is all over the internet. And the Americans, and Ronen Bar, our head of Shabak, has said point blank between 60 to 70% of all the humanitarian aid going into Gaza is being hijacked by Hamas. Okay, the American intelligence services collectively have said there is no credible evidence that any of the humanitarian aid is being hijacked by Hamas. So I don't know what I'm looking at on the videos. I mean, what am I looking at? Science fiction? The other thing is
what you're looking at on those videos is reality. What you're seeing on the videos from the State Department or the spokesman for the White House is woke and anti-Semitic.
Quite right.
Woke and anti-Semitic. What's the word I'm looking for?
Propaganda. It's propaganda. That's all it is.
It's an alternative reality. An alternative reality. It has nothing to do with the real world.
They want us, in other words, they want Israel to remove our protesters from the various crossings from Israel into Gaza. Now, it's curious to note, and it should be noted, that during the anti-judicial reform protests that nearly destroyed this country, the Biden administration threatened Bibi directly that if he interfered in any way, shape, or form with the right of the protesters to free expression in whatever form that took, that there would be consequences. And now we should tell the Americans what's good for the goose is good for the gander. The Israeli citizens that are protesting down on the border are simply expressing their democratic right to oppose the introduction of, or the provision of aid to Hamas. Bibi would be on firm ground because the polling all reflects the fact that Israel is united against this provision of supplies to the very people that are killing our chayalim, our soldiers, are still rocketing Israel, who have murdered countless numbers in their invasion, of the Gaza envelope, and are holding our hostages in inhumane conditions. Ben Gvir was right. For example, in one example, they shouldn't receive any aid until we would be assured that our hostages have received the medicine that Hamas agreed to provide them. And we've received no no assurances on that at all by the French. Remember that when the Biden's executive order came out concerning the territories, it was not only Blinken that would have the final word on whether certain Israelis were subject to sanctions or not, but Janet Yellen as well, as Secretary of the Treasury. And what she said today, well, it should be the first definition of chutzpah should be her demand today. It was an order from her that we are to hand over, without any deductions, every single shekel that's due to the PA, the taxes that we collect from the PA. Think about this for a moment. I asked a friend of mine in Washington who does consulting work for the State Department today, if we did.
Jonathan, I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I very much fear that many viewers are not familiar with these tax arrangements, collections, and reimbursements that you're discussing. Many Israelis perhaps are, but many people outside of Israel are probably not really in the know. So could you explain what are these payments? What are these taxes? What's going on here? Why does Israel have this money in the first place?
We collect taxes, for example, import taxes for the PA, with goods and services coming into Israel en route to the PA. Well, we collect work taxes for Palestinians who are working within Israel that come through the checkpoints, and it's quite a bit of money. And we have stopped providing money, certain amounts of money, due to the fact that the PA has refused to terminate its pay for slay policy, in which they basically essentially subsidize the murder of Jews. So,
in other words, Arabs who commit acts of terrorism, murder, etc., against Israelis and Jews, even outside of Israel for that matter,
correct,
who were then caught by Israeli authorities
or killed,
their families receive a stipend, a very generous stipend, it should be said. It's the most lucrative line of work that these people could possibly have come up with, and their families are rolling in it for the rest of their lives. And this is official policy of the so-called PA, the so-called Palestinian Authority.
And Mahmoud Abbas, the president, I guess, for life of the PA, has even extended this subsidy to the Hamasnikim Nazis that crossed the border on October 7th to murder, rape, pillage, and dismember our people.
Even though they threw his people off the rooftops in Gaza in 2006, because when it comes down to it, they're aiming for the same result, and they agree on everything except a few minor details, like who's going to be in charge and who's going to be able to skim more off the top for themselves, whether it's going to be Hamas affiliated people or PA affiliated people, but essentially they're all on the same page and all on the same team.
They have the same goal, but they pursue different means to that end, to that similar end. So of course,
that's the pay for slay policy. All right. So Israel collects all kinds of taxes and excises, what have you, due to regular day-to-day economic activities. And some of those funds have to be handed over to the PA, because they are in fact for people who from those areas who worked or who earned some money or paid a certain tax or what have you.
Right, and the reason why the PA is broke all the time is, apart from the corruption, which a lot of the money just disappears into various bank accounts, numbered bank accounts, offshore bank accounts, is because the bulk of the money that's given to the PA in the form of taxes and other things ends up in the pay for slay program. So when this came when it was time to hand over the money this time. We said no. That a large section of it was going to be withheld, possibly given to the victims of Arab terror, what have you, as compensation. And the PA said, no, you give us either all the money or we're not taking any of it. So the Americans got involved, of course, very quickly and worked out a deal, which I was opposed to, in which this money, reserved money, all this money that was supposed to go to the PA is being held in trust by the Norwegians of all the people. Next to the Irish,
the Norwegians of Oslo fame.
Correct. And just recently, the government of Norway refused to allow the King of Norway to issue an official, what's the right word, condolence for what happened to us, to Israel, for the murder, mass murder of our people on October 7th. And the Norwegian government has refused to condemn Hamas. If we refuse to characterize what they did as an atrocity, and has supported, along with Ireland, South Africa's claim that we are committing genocide. It's like the Quislings, if you remember your history, the Quislings, the Norwegian traitor, Vidkun Quisling, that was a pro-Nazi collaborator, has now risen from the grave and is now taken over the Norwegian government. So, but as I said before, I contacted a friend of mine who is a consultant to the State Department, and I asked him a simple question. I said, in the event we do, as Janet Yellen dictates, and hand all this money over to the Palestinians, authority rather, the PA, would we not be in violation of what's called the Taylor Force Act, which I'll explain? And he answered, yes. A young man, a veteran by the name of Taylor Force, a West Point graduate, veteran of the South Asian Wars, came to Israel to show solidarity, and he was brutally murdered, knifed to death in Tel Aviv.
When was this?
Several years ago. And his family and many Jewish organizations and even veteran organizations in the United States pushed for legislation, which eventually became known as the Taylor Force Act, named after this poor man that was slaughtered, which prevents the United States government from providing money, aid, to the PA unless and until they stop their pay-for-slay policy. And what the Biden administration has done is a sleight of hand by continuing to pay the money, except to various NGOs, non-governmental organizations, and other people, civil organizations, let's put it that way, which are completely run by the PA. It's a sleight of hand. So if we do as Janet Yellen dictates, we are actually violating American law, a law which the Biden administration has been blatantly violating ever since it assumed office. Trump stopped it, by the way. Trump abided by the Taylor Force Act. He was actually following the law. And the Biden administration immediately, just like they quit characterizing the Houthis as terrorists, they also quit characterizing the PA as murderers, subsidizers and murderers of murder of Jews. So here we have this situation where they've issued a diktat about us following humanitarian law, which I don't know what it is. I mean, it's whatever anybody wants it to be.
No one knows what it is. It's
no one.
It's an invention, and it's extremely elastic, and it
Very
can be made to fit any situation or need?
So we have till mid-March or else. And if people watch what happens, the UN and the various international courts are going to give the Americans what I call the excuse or justification for putting the knife to us and say, look, either you pull out of Gaza and you let Hamas live, or else we will have to abide by the world courts, the international criminal courts ruling that you are committing genocide or attempted genocide on the Palestinians of Gaza. It's all coordinated right now, all of it. And with Janet Yellen now coming out and saying we have to hand over money to the PA that they will use not only for their own pay for slave program, but to pay the Hamasnikim that crossed the border, were killed, subsequently killed, but who carried out the worst atrocities since the Khorban against our people. So we're protecting Hamas. We've stated that we want them to be part of this new Palestinian state in joint operation with the PA, and act in violation of American law, the Taylor Force Act. Now, if this isn't a clear sign that the Biden administration has crossed the line and become an outright enemy of Israel, I don't know what will convince people of that fact. There is no difference between what they are doing and what Iran wants to do and Hezbollah wants to do, because what they're ordering us to do through their insistence on unilateral recognition of a Palestinian state is to have us basically commit suicide by agreeing to it. I'm sorry. I like to say that there are two ways of killing a Jew. You can either kill a Jew like the Nazis with a bullet in the head or a gas chamber, or with love. And that in the Galut, this involves assimilation and eventual cultural destruction. But here, they are literally loving us to death with their diktats, day after day after day. Mid-March, people ask me, why mid-March? Well, that's the date they gave us to wrap things up in Gaza. And what if we haven't? Then get out. Basically, let Hamas live. And what about the hostages? Well, they're there, and they will be kept there. It's kind of like how they kept the bodies of our two Chayalim, kind of dangling them in front of us for years now. So these particular developments over the past couple of days signal a change, a seismic change in our relationship with the United States. And to complete this horrible metamorphosis from an ally to an overt enemy, we have Secretary of State Blinken just a few days ago unilaterally overturning a ruling of Secretary of State Pompeo, a great friend of Israel, I might add, when he ruled that our settlement policy in the territories was legal. We were in our rights to settle the territories. Blinken, and people haven't paid attention to this, he literally overturned that, which means now every Jew praying at the Kotel, every Jew praying at the Maharat HaMachpelah, every Jew praying at Kever Rachel, every Jew praying at Kever Yosef, every Jew living in the territories is subject to sanction now, banking sanctions by the United States government. And trust me, if you think I'm wrong on that, wait. It's coming. They will literally rule that the Kotel is in occupied territory, and that those people praying there are in violation of Biden's executive order. It's coming. They've laid the foundation for it, and people are just sleepwalking into this this political Auschwitz. I'll call it that way, a political Auschwitz. How dare they? This is why I said we should tell them right now, the United States, if you don't abide by the arms appropriations, the arms agreement that was signed under Obama, and you're making these conditions up now, ex cathedra, then we will use whatever weapon is at our disposal to fight our wars. You want the Middle East to end up to be a nuclear slag heap? We'll provide that for you. We won't lose. We won't. But we'll fight Al Kiddush Hashem in any way that we see fit to ensure our survival. That's your choice now. It's up to you. Either do away with this stupid order that's intended exclusively for us, or we will fight with every weapon we have. We did it in 73. We can do it again. And as far as all these other horrific rules and diktats that are coming out of, especially the State Department. So we are facing real existential problems right now from an unexpected source. I mean, it wasn't unexpected as far as I was concerned, but for everybody else. So Bibi has a full plate now, and the good news is that the country will support him. I've looked at the polling, Rav. I've looked at all the polling very carefully. And people understand that hard choices must be made now, particularly with regard to the United States. And Bibi they'll have his back in a positive sense if he stands up for our rights to live as an independent Jewish homeland and not to be some subservient colony, if you will, of the United States. So these are some of the negative things that have happened over the past couple of days.
Just a few, just to mention a few.
Yeah, and there are many other things that I could have mentioned, which, I mean, it would just, we would take hours to list all of these things that have happened.